I am invoking Article 17252 and yielding the floor to the senior senator from Chandrila.
Fellow senators, friends, colleagues, allies, adversaries, I stand before you this morning with a heavy heart. I stand this morning with a difficult message. I believe we are in crisis. The distance between what is said and what is known to be true has become an abyss. Of all the things at risk, the loss of an objective reality is perhaps the most dangerous. The death of truth is the ultimate victory of evil. When truth leaves us, when we let it slip away, when it is ripped from our hands, we become vulnerable to the appetite of whatever monster screams the loudest. This chamber's hold on the truth was finally lost on the Gorman Plaza. What took place yesterday? What happened yesterday on Gorman was unprovoked genocide. Yes, genocide. And that truth has been exiled from this chamber. And the monster screaming the loudest, the monster we've helped create, the monster who will come for us all soon enough, is Emperor Palpatine.
Welcome, Masters and Padawans, to episode 588 of Full of Sith. It's me, Bryan Young, and with me, as ever, the redoubtable Holly Frey. Holly, how's it going?
Good.
It's been a little while.
It has. It has, because, busyness and whatnot.
Well, we talked a whole lot in Japan, and then all of a sudden it was just like, not much at all.
Pesky life.
Yeah. Well, it was like we had a bunch of episodes all put together, and then stuff happened, and then Andor.
Yeah.
Andor. So that's what we're talking about today.
Yeah. Finally, the spoilery talk of Andor.
Yeah. So we're going to be talking about Andor in its entirety. And to that point, if you have not seen Andor Season 2, then, this is probably not the episode for you.
Yeah, you might want to roll out until you've seen it.
Yeah.
And then come on back.
Yeah, because you're going to want to watch it. We're going to be really getting into it. So there we go. We talked a little bit about the first episode already.
Yes.
Which is 1/12 of this.
Yes.
Where do you want to start?
I don't even know. I really don't even know. It's like, on the one hand, I'm like, should we do this talking through it chronologically, or should we just talk about the stuff that jumps out as most important, or Faulkner this thing and just stream of conscious the whole hour? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, like let's
First off, no Jezzy. Very important.
yeah.
For me personally, probably not for that many other people. But apparently that actor was busy and she didn't want to Just didn't want to come back, so they just didn't mess with it.
Yeah, and there's plenty of things that could have happened in a year.
Yeah. I just really liked having a, middle-aged lady who can pilot a ship and shoot a blaster in the mix.
Yeah. Um, man, I don't know. There's just so much. Like my mind is still reeling. And I
Here's the
want
thing I find myself talking about a lot. Do you want to start there?
yeah, let's start there.
Saw Gerrera's addiction issue.
Yeah, no, it's
Because I'm obsessed with this as a plot thing.
yeah.
Obsessed. One, because it breaks my heart, right? He even says the Rido is my sister and she loves me. And it's like, oh, he's never emotionally dealt with Steela's death. And he's just been self-medicating by huffing jet fuel, which is heartbreaking.
Yeah,
Two, Borg Gullet suddenly makes a lot more sense.
way more.
I like, oh, Saw was high through all of Rogue One. I mean, it's an interesting thing, right? Because we all presumed, most of us, I think, right, that he's taking hits of oxygen to try to stay alive and he's presumably been injured in battle. And now we kind of know that no, he's actually been burning himself from the inside out with rhydonium. And that
Yeah.
is what he's taking hits of. Which also makes it that much more poignant that he throws away his mask in his final moments and he wants to greet his doom without that. It's just a very the Saw Gerrera arc has become 10 times more interesting to me. I mean, I
My,
already thought it was interesting, but now I'm just like,
so one of my favorite parts of this whole arc and Patty and I, my wife, we went to Lucasfilm to um we went to Lucasfilm to watch the last episode of the arc and Rogue One with for a fan screening, and it was one thing watching it on the small screen, but seeing that last episode and on the big screen and the scene where like Mon Mothma is trying to warn Saw about what's going on Jeddah and the paranoia with which he so adamantly is like, you have no idea where I am, is
yeah,
so funny. Like we've been giggling about it for like 2 days. Like in the best ways because it's just like he's in complete paranoid denial.
yeah. I mean, it also becomes an interesting discussion, and we can get into this more too. This may be the segue. I talked about this briefly today on Blue Sky, how one of the things I love very poignantly clear that there are a lot of different kinds of leadership and action cells needed to make a rebellion, but that we, without knowing it in 1977, got the sanitized version, like the whitewashed version, where the Saw Gerreras, the Luthen Rails, the messy people had been written out of the story so that you could preserve this sort of idealized version of the rebellion. Which then, here is what has really gotten me about season 2 of Andor. We all knew it was going to change Rogue One, and it changed Rogue One immensely. But
Yeah.
I have been shocked by how much it changes A New Hope for me. Because now when I watch it, I'm like, this farm boy has no idea what the rebellion is. Like, he gets to be this very clean-handed hero with a big medal ceremony. And what he doesn't know is that a lot of down and dirty stuff had to happen to get to that point. and he has been shielded and saved from all of it. And I'm just like, damn. Also, it makes Han Solo feel like more in line with the Resistance fighters I understand than Luke Skywalker does anymore.
Well, which is why he fits so well in Solo, and it makes sense that he's already very Saw adjacent when Enfys Nest is like, we've got to get this to Saw.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, just um, the idea that she's like, Saw, they're on Jeddah, like the Star Destroyer's there, like what you're doing is putting you in danger. We're just trying to warn you, and he's just like, you have no idea where I am, and it's like, you're on Jeddah, Saw, like.
Oh, I didn't read it like that. I read it like him going, "My fortress is so hidden in the desert. You don't even have to worry about me."
And and on repeated viewings, like him just going like it reads as like a child's denial,
I
right?
mean, he is obviously like not in his right mind, but I read it more as like a he knows they know he's on Jeddah, but
Uh,
his point was like, "No, we are hidden. We are fortressed up over here."
yeah, no, I read it as him going like you don't.
You don't know I'm on Jeddah where I am.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't see me. It's the toddler going, "You can't see me," when they have their own
Yeah,
hand over their face. Yeah.
yeah. Um, and it's the Rhydonium and stuff. And then
Oh.
watching Rogue One like right after it and seeing him like just not even able to process reality where like he's asking Jin like did they send you here to kill me? Like he is very like he's not with it at all, and it's such an interesting arc. Like it's such an interesting arc for Saw from the beginning of um Clone Wars with Stila and everything on Onderon, all the way to, um, all the way to this moment with and in Andor season 2 with the Rhydonium and everything. Like it's so interesting. It's so fascinating to see his arc and his fall, and I think it actually like heightens his parallels with Anakin Skywalker and Darth Vader. Like we'd had that really interesting parallel where it's like these are two men that became more machine than men and driven by their goals and their I- ideals, and um Gareth Edwards had talked about how he wanted to visually make Saw sort of he wanted to make everything sort of the opposite, the
Right.
antithesis of A New Hope, and that Saw is sort of the anti-Vader, right? And he doesn't have a mask, but he's got the breathing thing, and he's not evil per se, but he's with the rebellion, but he's got his problems. And him and Vader are both just so driven to do horrible things, and they're both for the right reasons in their head, but Saw is actually doing them for actual good reasons and good outcomes, and Anakin is doing them for right reasons and terrible outcomes. And it sets them off in totally different ways where they've both completely lost their minds.
Well, and the thing with Saw too, right? Like to him, because uh, some of his paranoia and distrust is stuff that was fomented by Luthen Rail, right? Like Luthen was juggling all of these disparate groups and keeping them from joining up with one another and putting Saw in these awkward conversations and positions.
Holly?
Like even in the for not, they're just gonna let Krieger go die, or if he's gonna give him the heads up. telling him like you're damning the rebellion if you do that, but it's your decision. Like he already has this like proclivity towards paranoia because of his own problems with Rhydonium, and I think probably just like the way he grew up, his experiences, his trauma. But then you have a Luthen Rael who is puppeteering the whole thing, amping up all of those facets of his personality and being like, "Yes, you should be paranoid because, I'm the only one who knows all the stuff and I'm not even going to tell you and I might have you killed. I just need you to know that that's how this goes. That's how the rebellion works." So of course he's never going to trust Mon Mothma and Draven and Bail Organa. To him, they're the same as Luthen. They're like part of the others that he was never included in.
Yeah.
So good.
Um, and I think the episode where we get that Rhydonium uh story is sort of exemplifies that as well, where he had that traitor that he has to shoot,
Hmm.
where it's like they're all around me anyway. So when he has these people that are loyal, um,
Tubes,
they're
baby.
yeah, like he has to keep them around him, which is all the more interesting when you get to why when he explains to Jin why he had to leave her,
Right.
right? When he's like, people were beginning to suspect that this was a problem. I was leaving you to protect you. Um, which is in his own twisted way, like I'm doing the wrong thing for the right reason.
Yes. Did you also have that moment now that all of this has come to light about Saw where you're like, Galen and Lyra basically made him the godfather of their child? Like,
Well,
are you
but
guys
like
okay?
think about Saw 15 years prior though,
Right.
right? Like the Saw that they knew, the Saw that helped them get to Lamu is um that Saw is much different than the Saw um that we knew.
We hope.
Um, the Saw, like that Saw and like that got them to Lamu is more like the Saw that we see in Bad Batch.
Right. Oh, so
You know what I
good.
mean? Which is a totally different person.
Yeah.
But no, Saw.
Saw Gerrera, you mess.
Yeah, and it's weird. Like Saw's in like 4 scenes in Andor, and this is the depth at which we're discussing him, which kind of just goes to show you how deep Andor season 2 goes, because we could go even deeper with like Clea.
Oh, Clea.
Yeah.
Oh, Clea.
Yeah.
Oh, Clea.
So Clea, for those
Do you follow? I'm gonna do a quick, not very important to the story, but it fascinated me. Do you follow Elizabeth Dulau on social media?
no, I don't. Well, I mean, I think I do, but I haven't been on
Okay.
social media much in the last while.
This is just a random thing that I thought was fascinating because she posted a video of her getting into makeup for the show. And she specifically mentioned in the caption that that kind of like smoked out, what looks like a smoked out reddish brown eyeshadow around her eyes is not meant to be perceived as makeup. That's Clea's natural coloring,
Hmm.
which is just interesting to me because then I'm like, okay, is that like to say that is how she was born and whatever people or wherever she grew up, that is what they look like? Or is this a case where something has happened to her that has, caused like this forever subtle rash around her eye? I don't know. I just find it fascinating. Clea is ceaselessly fascinating to me.
No, she really is, and she stepped up this season in a great way. for those who don't remember, Clea was Luthen's assistant
There are
in
people that
season
don't
one.
remember.
I don't know. Like, Holly, the thing I'm finding out is that we are a very special breed of Star Wars nerd who remembers way more than most people.
Listen, a lot of people don't remember who Jesse was, so I get it.
Um, so here's a funny story. Um I hosted a Star Wars trivia night right like 3 days after I got back from Japan.
Okay.
And I agonized over it and I was terrified it was too easy, right?
Yeah.
And in order to try to make it too easy or to make it easy enough, I like did it from my head. Like
Uh-huh.
I was like everything, I'm gonna just pull stuff from my head. I'm not gonna like look up anything difficult.
Gotcha, gotcha, gotcha.
Um it's just gonna be stuff that's just like rattling around in my head and I'm gonna try to make it easy stuff that like has been there for a long time. I'm not gonna go into the books. It's all gonna be movies for the most part, and then a little bit of the TV shows. No books, no comics for the most part. Um, as general audience as I can get. And I really, really, really agonized over it once I printed it out because I was like, this is gonna be way too easy. And it was 9 rounds,
Hmm.
and I showed up and I did it, and it was way too hard.
Hmm.
And like most teams out of 9 rounds got about 30 or 40 points. The winning team ended up with 140.
I don't know what that means. What are the points worth? How do you get a point? How many points per answer?
It was so there were there was like 100 possible points that you could get with just answering a question, 1 or 2 points per question depending on the round, and then you could double your points with a final question by it was sort of like you could wager up to half your up to all of your points on a final question.
Gotcha. You
So
could daily
so
double it.
you could double it up to 200 points. So the winning team ended up with 140 points after doubling their score. Um so they ended up with 70 points total during the quiz, but most people even after that doubling round ended up with 30 or 40 points. So me going like, okay, here's who Clea is. I don't know. I'm really extra sensitive at the moment about like nobody knows anything about Star Wars apparently anymore.
Well, I feel like though if they've been through Andor season 2, which we, gave them the heads up at the top of the episode, they know
Yeah.
who Clea is. She's pretty central.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Fair, I guess. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, Clea. But so Tony Gilroy, and I got to talk to him for Script Magazine, and I'm hoping you'll be able to listen to you as in the audience, listen to those interviews on the feed sometime sooner than later. But at Script Magazine, I did 2 interviews with him for season 2, and he was talking about how like this was her first role. They cast her straight out of drama school, and she was like their third choice. Um, and they weren't sure what she'd be capable of with season 1, but saw that she was amazing, and so he wrote more for her for season 2, and that's why we got all this terrific stuff in season 2.
So good.
And um, yeah, um, it was really really terrific stuff with her, but getting to see her backstory and getting to see what she put together for the rebellion and how she was really like the backbone for Luthen and she was like the realist who kept him grounded and really lost like after Luthen was gone and her mission was sort of over and she delivered it. Like I think the finale episodes were as much about saving her emotionally as physically, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes
um
total. I mean, we spend a lot of time with her in those episodes,
yeah.
and we see how she only knows how to operate on like the processes they have put in place towards this one singular goal, which is initiated by her experience as a child, right? And Luthen trying to make up for his part in it. Which is just fascinating because she becomes the linchpin of everything in that regard in terms of being the catalyst for the whole rebellion. But it's like her life from the time she was tiny was nothing but we got to get these people. We got to fight them. This is all we do. I have a purpose. It's singular. This is all I'm focused on. And then suddenly she's kind of left out of that equation. Like, there's a lot of that in those final episodes for people, not all terribly sympathetic, right? I kind of have a smidgen of sympathy. I can't believe I'm saying this. Even for Perrin,
Yeah.
he's obviously spiraling when we see him in that final montage, right? Like, he is, it appears, having some sort of affair with Davos Skolden's wife. That can't possibly go well. But when you read, particularly if you've read Mask of Fear, right, we know that his whole thing, we know he did some military service at some point, but like his whole job has been to be a senator's spouse and perform all of the supportive duties that go with that, sort of socially, but also like in ways that are actually maneuvering politically. And now he's rudderless. He doesn't have that. His whole thing is falling apart in a different way. That even though he's often a jerk, I feel really bad for him.
Did you hear about the scene that got cut?
I did, but I know there was a scene that got cut, and I haven't gone to examine what that is. So tell me everything.
So the scene that got cut, supposedly, I don't know the veracity of how accurate this scene is, and I would love, love, love to see it if they actually did deleted scenes. Is that apparently at some point he was talking to Mon, um, telling her like, you could trust me because he's like, um, you know, like, ISB's been interviewing me every week for the last X amount of years, and I've never told him anything, and I know everything.
Right.
Um, the idea that like he's been protecting her this whole time.
Yeah. Which is interesting. I mean, I still don't think she could have told him,
Oh
right?
no.
Because then he just becomes a tool for the Empire to
Yeah.
potentially use against her. It's better if they think she never trusted him and never told him anything because she didn't and she didn't. Um, but yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, I really, really I have talked about this book so much, but Mask of Fear was such a revelatory book for me because it does, mention Perrin really being pretty good at that role and doing everything. And I think I haven't gone back to revisit the text to double check my memory, but I think she specifically mentions, like in Mon's recollection, that they neither of them has ever cheated, even though they aren't always in love.
Yeah.
Um, which I find really interesting because then it makes his kind of feeling her out, teasing her, but also accusing her of having an affair with Takoma to be really, really interesting. Because I'm like, is this a person that's actually very hurt? Or is this a person that kind of knows he's just talking crap and he's just really having her on and, kind of playing rough with her and accusing her of things that he knows aren't real? Like, I don't know, but it makes it complex and interesting.
I think the other thing that was really interesting is that this season really softened him as a character in a way that like season one I was really not a fan of him.
Oh, yeah.
And
Hate
this
it.
season really brought him to the forefront and showed me like how good at that job he is. And
Yeah.
I don't think it was just Mask of Fear, which does a really good job of that also.
Oh yeah, no, I wouldn't say it was just that at all. I would never have said that. But that like plants the seed of him
Yeah. But
him being a very good a very good partner in the political scene.
Yeah, no, this season does that really well.
Yeah.
It just
I
gives him more to do.
I love the moment. We may have talked about this at Celebration with him and Skulden, where they're talking about their kids, and it's like, this is going to be a bucking bronco of a marriage for these two.
Well, yeah, no, but it paints everything he's done and everything he did in season one in a different light, right? Like where Mon is complaining like these people all hate me, and in this season you see like that scene you're talking about with Skulden and Perrin, and he's dealing with Skulden and doing it jovially and making it seem as though he's on Skulden's team, even though he's just like, no, my daughter is going to walk all over your kid and you're going to like that. And sort of defending his family and
Yeah.
defending all of them. Like what he's been doing this whole time is taking her enemies and letting them know where they stand, right? So that,
And in a way that makes them think he is their buddy.
yeah. And so, like, when he has that dinner in season one, it repaints that in a totally different light for me.
I I hate their kid. I hate her. I hate her so
I
much.
loved some of those scenes though so much because it's such a tragic misunderstanding of those characters misunderstand each other so much in such fascinating ways. Like the scene where she goes and she's like, "I'm going to tell you the thing I wish my mother would have told me." And then Lita just goes like, "You don't even understand. Like I wish you were drunk. Like how
Yeah.
dare you?" Because like Mon, it's so fascinating that Mon can read the political moment so expertly in the Senate, but cannot read her daughter. And that is such a fascinating character flaw.
Yeah, she they do not connect at all, which I get. I mean, I did not connect with my mom at all. I was probably a Leda. Um, but I also just am like, oh, like I mean, I guess part of it, right? And I have to remember that that character is a baby, right? She's a kid, but
Oh yeah.
like you want her to be like after that whole thing about you don't have to go out there, you can call this all off. You want her to be like, "No, mom, I'm totally happy. I'm gonna get married. I'm into this." But instead, she's such a cruel little witch. Mean as a snake, that child.
I wonder where she lands after the New Republic.
That's a good
I
question.
wonder where Perrin does too. Like that's something that like after the rebellion, does he make it through? Do they reunite? Does she end up does he
No, he
become
gets cirrhosis of the liver and dies.
does he show up and be a chancellor's husband?
No. I think there's too much. I think there's too much there that is you can't unring those bells, you know. I think he felt very left behind and hurt. I think she still doesn't think she can trust him. It's kind of exactly what you were saying. She can read political things, but she can't really read her family.
Yeah.
Um, she's not as great at interpersonal communication as she is at political communication. Um, which is also sad. It makes me then think about my Bryan and I were discussing this. Mon's insistence in I never remember the titles of the books. The one where Leia and Han get married. Mon's insistence that they actually
Princess and the
take a
Scoundrel.
honeymoon. And
Beth
I'm like,
Revis's Princess and the Scoundrel.
thank you. Um, yeah, her insistence that they actually go away and have a honeymoon. I'm like, oh, she's trying to give them something that she felt like she maybe didn't get. It just changed, it reframes everything and makes me reconsider things in a different way.
Yeah. No, the writing in this is so good. And the writing is so good in like in different ways than we've gotten good writing in Star Wars.
Mhm.
Um, I really love. I know that there are some problematic elements to the Vel and Cinta storyline that
Yeah.
some people have had issues with, but like on a pure writing level, if we can take that into a vacuum, it's such an elegant piece of storytelling as far as like the way the themes interconnect and work and the choices it makes the characters make and how it all interconnects. Like I love the moment, that silent moment when Vel sees Cinta for the first time and it tells the entire story of what's happening to Take Homa. Like that one look between Cinta and
Mm-hmm.
Vel tells us all of the heartbreak between the two of them, everything going on between the two of them, but it also tells us everything about what Luthen has organized for Take Homa.
Yeah.
And it does so much at once. That one look, that one cut between the two of them tells us so much story on two different levels.
Yeah. Yeah, it's intense as hell. I also just think we haven't even discussed the Luthen rail of it all as it pertains to that first arc, right? He has clearly weaseled his way into that wedding under the auspices of work, but Skulldon even says during his speech, "Oh, this antiquities dealer approached me and told me he had, this important artifact." And I'm like, oh my God, he orchestrated this whole thing so he could be at this event and keep tabs on everybody there. Um, Luthen Rail. What a complex little knot that gentleman is.
Oh man, and I loved getting some of his backstory, and I loved that realization in that episode where, well, the scene where Dedra comes to confront him
Yeah,
in the antiquities shop is so
yeah.
good. And the realization when she pulls out the Star Path unit
Hmm.
and when he like tries to off himself is
Hmm.
so good. And then when we get the rest of the episode and you realize like Clay is not on a rescue mission,
Yeah,
which is heavy, but all of the scenes leading up with the two of them and their backstory and how they operated and how Clea from even her youngest days was uh you know she was that sharp even as a kid,
yeah.
um at getting him out of trouble, which almost is part of the magic trick of that episode where it lulls you into believing that look at these situations when they were young when she rescued him. It makes
Oh,
you
right. Like you
want
think
to
she's gonna rescue him
believe.
again?
It makes you want to believe that she's going to rescue him even though you know she can't,
Yeah.
right?
Did you happen to watch the behind the scenes that they did for that arc?
I did not.
Because made a really interesting statement, Elizabeth Doolittle did, where she was saying, Clea hates Luthen as much as she loves him, and she will never forgive him for that day when they met. But there is this weird sort of love that has grown around that problem. I'm not quoting directly, but pretty close. And it just makes you so aware of how complicated that relationship is. We've all been wondering for 2 seasons, like, what exactly is the deal with these two? Is she actually his daughter? Is there something like what is this relate? And now that we know it, and that at least she had such a clear picture of what it was and how the levers of that relationship functioned, I just am kind of like blown away by how masterfully it played out.
Oh yeah. Well, and it makes so much of the stuff earlier in the season function so much better when you go back and think about it and revisit it when
Hmm.
she's like when they're sniping at each other when he's like when he's like, have you heard from him? And she's like, how? Like, how am I gonna get that detail? Like, this is a binary signal I'm getting. Like, we're exposed here. I told you this. Like, I need
Yeah.
actual equipment. Like, what do you expect from me? Like,
Well, and even going back to season one, where she accuses him of slipping, like that he's getting soft and he's not staying sharp. Like, she is always a little bit on his ass. So
well,
good.
and he deserves it.
Oh, 100%.
And she's just, no one seems capable of talking to him like that, and he needs it. And she's literally the only person who could,
Yeah.
just given their history.
Yeah.
But oh man, but back on track a little bit with Cinta and Vel,
Hmm.
like it's so tragic in the best ways that like Vel made the decisions that caused Cinta's death and has to carry that in the worst ways. Like Cinta was Cinta removed herself from the situation because she knew that she didn't want to be involved because the work was more important to her. And then Vel, because Cassian had the Cassian had the right of the Gorman situation, that it was a trap, that
Yeah.
they shouldn't be doing that, that it was going to be a bigger problem than it was worth, and that the Empire was luring them into it. And so Luthen puts Vel in that situation, and Vel stamps her feet and says, "Only if Cinta can come with me." And which is like really terrible of Vel actually, because Cinta sort of made her feelings known and said like, "No, we're not going to do this. We should stay away from each other because this is how I'm going to."
Wait a minute. That feels a little revisionist.
Well, no, I mean, like, Cinta in season one was like they
The
kind of had
cause comes first, we take the rest. It's not, I don't want to be with you.
yeah, well, the cause comes first, but no, she said later that when she got wounded, she said that not to tell her and that she was staying away.
Yeah, but I don't read that as her not wanting to be with Vel. That's like trying to protect her because she knows that if Vel knows she's hurt, Vel is out of the game at that point. She's not an operative. She is worried only about Cinta and will run to her side.
In any case, Cinta is the one who said, or Val is the one who said, Cinta needs to be here or I'm not going to do it.
Right.
And Cinta didn't necessarily need to be there. Vel could have handled that on her own. Cinta was doing that, or Vel was doing that for herself, not for the cause. And that's the point.
Yeah, which is right. It makes that whole speech that she gives to the Gore operative, whose name I don't remember, who accidentally shot Cinta. Like she's giving that speech to herself.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good.
Um,
It's so
but
good.
but it's like there's so much there in that, like, yeah, that the incompetent white guy literally cannot listen to the lesbian couple or the woman of color when they say like, no, you don't get a gun because something stupid is going to happen,
Right.
and he brings the gun anyway and something stupid happens, and the people who told him no, you don't get a gun are the ones who pay for it.
Hmm.
And like, I understand, I know, like, I've talked to a lot of folks who were really disappointed by that and really felt like Tony Gilroy should not have been peddling in bury your gays tropes, and I understand that. Um, but I also feel like it was a really powerful statement in the other direction about um really entitled dudes not listening to uh people in charge that they don't view as worth listening to, and
Yeah.
also the selfishness of what Vel had done and how she's going to have to grapple with that for the future of her story.
Yeah.
That it was just a really, really heartbreaking moment.
Ugh, all of it. We haven't talked about Gorman at all.
No, we haven't. And Gorman, wow, Gorman was just a hell of a setting generally.
Yes. First of all, I want to learn gore. Please give us a language course where we can learn gore. I'm ready. Um, Everything about that whole Gorman arc is incredible and deeply painful. Um, the culture is so good. It's so good. I I love the barware everywhere. I mean, listen, we all know I'm a bit of a Francophile, so this is very much in my wheelhouse. But just the way every detail was so perfect, and every element of design in that world is so perfect. And yet it also feels very lived in and not like an artifice. It's incredible. Oh, obsessed. Obsessed.
Um, the one of the chief inspirations, I don't know if you've heard of it. Tony Gilroy told me in that interview that one of the chief inspirations for um Andor season two, but particularly Gorman and two of the actors that he pulled out of and put in as Gorman, like Gore in the show, came from this French show called The French Village.
Mhm.
And he said it was just amazing. And that was like a really key influence on Gorman specifically, but this whole season in general.
Oh, it's so good.
So
It's
that,
so good.
um, so yeah, I'm gonna try to check it out actually if I can find it.
I have not gone looking for it. I did hear him reference it somewhere else. I don't remember where. Um, and I'm not
And
sure.
it's I mean there is so much like French in there that like the language was based on um they
Well,
took
it's
like
the phonemes of French,
yeah,
but
and then
it's a new
invent yeah,
language.
they invented a new language with the sounds of French. Yeah. Which is why it sounded so French, which actually kind of hurt my brain a little bit because I'm like, it sounds French, but it is absolutely not French.
Yeah.
Um,
Village Français is on Prime Video
um,
to rent or buy.
okay, cool. And then we talked a little bit about like how the like there was some Casablanca in their anthem and stuff,
Yeah.
um, which was such a devastating moment. But like the Gorman massacre is something that has been in the canon in some form or another for years, for 30 years, right? Like
Yeah.
this is something that's been it was first mentioned in the role-playing game 30 years ago. And the chief lore advisor on this is Pablo Hidalgo, who if anyone is an encyclopedia of the old West End Star Wars role-playing game, it's Pablo. And one of the chief sort of supplements that he gave Tony Gilroy for helping him flesh out like how some of the world around Andor worked. It's some of those books on the old West End games, um, specifically the Imperial source book and the stuff around how that stuff went. Um, and the Gorman massacre, I was actually really surprised that they didn't just start over from scratch, but they actually worked in the story of the original Gorman massacre from the book. so that the Gorman massacre we saw is actually the second Gorman massacre, and they left in uh, Tarkin's original Gorman massacre. They just moved it to the beginning of the war,
Yeah.
which was really cool.
Tarkin.
Yeah, that guy's the worst.
Mm.
Um, and I don't know. I just really liked it. I loved Cyril and Dedra's part in it. Their dynamic on this season was so good. They had I honestly I think they had like two of the best scenes in the show this season. Maybe three.
There was a lot of good stuff. I mean, even in the less immediately fraught in terms of like the overarching theme of what was going on in the galaxy. I will watch Dedra Miro and Edie Karn have dinner together every day. It's
That
the
was
best.
that was one of the funniest scenes I have ever seen.
So
Um,
good.
like Dedra Miro laying it out to Edie Karn how it's gonna be is so good.
And sort of
And
beautifully unexpected, right? I feel
yeah,
like that was kind of one of the best things for me about all of season two is there were a lot of unexpected turns.
yeah. There was that, and then there was I mean the fact that Cyril and Dedra were together in the first place, like was already sort of a shock.
I described it to my husband as like the jump scare of them playing house. I was just like, "Whoa, hey, whoa, oh,
But then
gracious!"
like the scene where he comes back and she's just like, turn out the lights.
My goodness, the two
And
of them
oh
are
man,
painful together in the
turn
best
out
way.
the lights. But no, the scene where he finally realizes he's being used by her
Yeah,
is so good. And like everything he thought he was fighting for and everything he thought he was being loyal to for the Empire was wrong. And he's just like out of like he's listless and completely hollow, but then he catches sight of Cassian and he has this fury to him, and Cassian has the temerity to not even know who he is.
oh my gosh. Way to go out like a chump, right? The
Yeah.
person you have focused all your energy on for years has no idea who you are. Your arch nemesis doesn't even know they're that.
Yeah.
Genius. Genius.
Oh, it's so good. And I love that it mirrors the moment with Jin and Krennic
Yeah.
because he asks her the same thing.
Who are you?
What and the opposite sort of happens when she says who she is. He has this rush of insight and it does stop him long enough
Yeah.
to go like, "Oh, oh, this is what I sowed coming, this is me reaping what I sowed,"
Yeah.
giving Cassian enough time to shoot him.
Yeah.
Um, and where Cassian has the same thing with like that hollows out Cyril even further, giving the gore enough time to shoot him. Again, Cassian reaping what he sowed.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, man, Cyril. Um, Cyril's costumes are once again perfect. I mean, all the costumes are perfect, and I know everyone is very focused on all of Mon Mothma's beautiful clothes, which I love as well. I also love that they did make the move that she wore much more sensible shoes the day she's going to give the scary speech because she knew she was going to run. But Cyril's clothes in that revelatory moment where he recognizes that he's essentially been used by the woman that he loves and has been kind of a pawn in a bigger fallacy is so smartly designed. Michael Wilkinson designed all the costumes for both seasons and is, as far as I'm concerned, a genius. But one thing that's really lovely, just the same way like you could look at what Cyril wore in season one. You remember I waxed rhapsodic about his tailored vest and how you can literally see that they went back and altered a vest to fit him. Like if you really like scrutinize the seams, you can see that they've been taken apart and put back together. Similarly, when he's wearing that like brown trench coat, which is very smart and presumably is made of Gorman twill. It has these little tiny color blocks of black, like at the tips of the collar flap and at like parts of the pocket and at the hem. I think there's a little triangle of black, and it's such a smart little visual way to support what is going on with Cyril Karn because he has been living what he thinks is like his perfect life of purpose, but there are now these little chinks in the armor, right? There are little bits of information that are starting to break through as he's realizing in that episode what's going on. And it's like the same thing is happening with those little tiny bits of color that are breaking up an otherwise monochrome garment that engulfs him completely. And it's just a really, really smart way I wanted to point out because it's happening in a lot of different scenes and a lot of different garments. But it's such an that one's a really easy one to point to and be like, this is why the costumes in this show are genius.
Yeah.
It also conveys this idea of like, he has been, fed a steady diet of, poisonously wrong rhetoric by the Empire. And it's almost like the way a leaf that gets too much food, the wrong food, will start to like burn at the edges. It's kind of the same thing, right? His edges are burning because he's realizing that he's been taking in the wrong stuff. It's so genius. It's such beautiful design. Again, I'm obsessed with it. I'm obsessed with the clothes in this show.
Yeah. No, oh man. And we haven't talked about like Bix and we haven't talked about that ending. That ending really kicks you in the teeth.
Mhm.
Um, because Bix having I don't know, there's something really poetic about season one where Marva says, I have to stay. You need to leave because the movement is important and you need to go do that, essentially. Like, I need to stay here. You need to get out of here so you can
Right.
survive. And she's willing to stay to sacrifice herself for him in some way. And now in season two, you've got Bix saying, you're too important to the movement. You have to stay. So I'm making this decision for you and I'm leaving.
Yeah.
Um, where it's that reversal, but then seeing her at the end with Cassian's kid, and that's why she's leaving, and she's trying to keep that safe, knowing that like if he knew she was pregnant, it's not just her. It's like if he knew she
Right.
was pregnant, like all of that would be too much for him, and he would not give the rebellion what it needed, right? It's the same thing with thematically with like Cinta and Vel, right? Like we get what's left over.
Yeah.
Um, but it makes there's that moment in Rogue One where that piece of music kicks in where he's holding Jin on the beach and he tells her your father would be proud. That hits so much harder now thinking about that context where it's you can read it as though like he's a father, right? Like speaking from experience he doesn't know he has.
Huh. I don't know that that flies for me, but I'll roll with it for your sake.
I don't know, like it moved me a lot more like thinking like
I've actually been meaning to ask you about it because you texted me about how that line hits you so much harder, and I'm
well,
like,
not even just the line, just that piece of music too.
right, right, right. But I was like, how I don't understand. I gotta ask Bryan about this, and
Like
then I forgot. So I'm glad you brought it
it's
up.
It's like he's a surrogate father trying to give her that reassurance that everything was okay, which is a very fatherly, it's a very paternal thing to do, right? Like he had the instincts to be a dad,
I think I gotcha.
right? And he would have been a good dad, I think. He was a caring, nurturing person who was willing to give up everything and sacrifice everything. And that's what made the sacrifice in Rogue One so important, that he didn't sacrifice himself just for his kid that he didn't know he had, but for literally all the kids
Yeah.
so that they could all have a better future. And that he doesn't even know about it and he's still willing to make that sacrifice for everyone is so profoundly moving that it just, I don't know, that piece of music sort of like always hits me in the tear ducts every time anyway. So it's not like it's hard for that to like hit me harder, but the way it's framed and the way the sun hits and the way the explosions coming at them and the sort of the color temperature of the scene is evocative of the same color temperature of Bix on Mina Rao with the wheat and everything. And so it's like it's meant to be evocative of that scene and remind you of what Cassian has there. Right? Like I don't know. I don't think that I don't think it's an accident that there are many similarities in how those shots are set up and the somberness of the music and the color palettes that are used and stuff. You are supposed to bring that to mind and it's supposed to hit a little harder.
I'm just taking it in. I'm not just thinking. Um, I was gonna say something now. I forgot what it was. I don't know. It's also great. I have felt so bad. This has been, I'm sure for you as well. We were fortunate enough to have screeners for this entire season. I thought that being at Celebration was the hardest part of like just not being able to tell anybody anything. But that's a lie because the hardest part was after Cassian and really after Brasso leaves B2 with his girlfriend, and then we don't see B again, and everybody kept being like, "Are we ever gonna see B again?" And I'm just like, that was the hardest part of this season, I think.
Oh man, but think about that. There's another Andor kid out there being watched over by B2 emo.
That's what I thought about. Like, B is so happy to be raising Marva's grandbaby. Like, he is the nanny we all wish we had, and he has all of that experiential love of Marva and Clem and raising Cassian and now being with little baby version. It's very, very sweet. There is also the interesting juxtaposition. This is a light thing. I know we're kind of at the end of our time. That really struck me because we saw in season one B waking Cassian up, right? And calling him like doing the Cassian, Casa as he's like dreaming about his sister. And then in this season we see him having those dreams, but it's just K2 tapping him on the face. Like I just I love the completely different way that droids wake Cassian up. It just made me chuckle so hard. Aside from K2 being hilarious, and we haven't even talked about that. K2, indestructible, needs no shield, yet chooses to use an Imperial as a body shield. Love it. Um, but just the juxtaposition of B, who is this kind of cozy little, slightly messy because he's so human droid, trying to wake Cassian up in this gentle way, calling his name, and K just poking him. Love
I
it.
want to bring up one thing I want to talk about really briefly before we wrap it though, is Partagaz's last scene.
Mm.
Because like I love Nemec's manifesto
Mm-hmm.
and the idea that Cassian and the rest of the rebels have spread it out that far and wide, that Partagaz is contemplating his failure by listening to Nemec's manifesto
Yeah.
and listening to how unnatural his level of control is. And
Mm-hmm.
instead of taking responsibility for his actions, deciding to off himself instead is really powerful.
Well, and that plus Dedra's wind up here
Oh, yeah.
then informs Rogue One, and you realize why Krennic is so amped up when Tarkin keeps going, you gotta leak, leaky, leaky, leaky. Like, he knows what can happen to him, right? If Partagaz hadn't done away with himself, odds are pretty good that, Vader would have paid him a visit, and that wouldn't have been great either because everything leaked and fell apart under his leadership.
Yeah.
And there
Well, which
is
is
that
why,
moment where Krennic's like, "Hey, I can't protect you. Like your people messed up real bad." Um, so then when Krennic is in that position of like, "Hey, things are going real south under you," like you know why he is so frantic and amped up.
yeah. Well, and he still took a Death Star laser to the face.
He did because Tarkin is petty.
And I love, oh man, and Lonnie Young's end. Poor guy.
Oh,
And I love how that scene plays out essentially like that classic Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy Mother
yeah,
Night scene on the park bench, just in
yeah.
Coruscant. Like it's just a regular park bench in Coruscant.
Hmm.
Um, no, there's so much. We could do 5 episodes on Andor.
Oh, I never shut up about Andor
Maybe
anymore.
we should do
Anybody
it.
in my life that's not watching it is just screwed because it's all I want to talk about all the time.
Maybe we should do it arc by arc. But um, next week we have Justina Ireland on the show talking about Acolyte Wayseeker. So if you
Hooray!
haven't had a chance to read or listen to that book, do so. It's really good.
I have
Um,
it in hand and have not done it yet.
it's good. It's good. It's set decades before Acolyte and decades after Trials of the Jedi, which is sort of the end of the Nile conflict. So we get to see a very young Master in Indara and a very middle-aged Vernestra Rowe,
Bum
which
bum
is
bum.
interesting.
I'll bet.
Yeah, and Justina had a lot of really interesting things to say about the book. It's not terribly spoilery, the conversation, so um, if you're not finished with the book completely, you'll be okay, but you probably want to start it to listen to
Are you?
next week's show. So I'm giving you the heads up.
Yeah. I don't know that I will because my life is a little complicated right now. It'll be
Yeah.
fine.
And next
It'll
week
be
is your
fine.
birthday.
It is, and it's Star Wars' birthday, which is the more important one.
Yeah. It's the 48th birthday of Star Wars.
Star Wars is middle-aged,
Yeah. Aren't we
probably
all?
feeling it in its back.
Yeah. All right. Well, where can people find you then, Holly?
I am on Blue Sky, just as Holly Fry, and I'm on Instagram as Surly Girly 5. And I am still making stuff you missed in history class and Criminalia. And season 2 of Unbelievable with Dan Aykroyd goes on forever. It's a long season. So you can still see me on the History Channel on Friday nights talking about weird history. How about you?
You can find me at swankmatron.com or swankmatron across social media. I have a new Battletech release coming out on Friday, actually. If you've read Fox Tales, which was the first collection of Fox Patrol stories, Volume 2 comes out on Friday. It's called Lone Wolf and Fox, and it's the second volume of stories featuring them. If you want to go to my website at swankmatron.com, you can get signed copies. I'll sign them and send them to you. Or you can go get them wherever you get Battletech books, which is super cool. So for Full of Sith, you can go to fullofsith.com and listen to the entire back catalog of episodes, which is a lot now. And be sure to tell your friends about it and rate and review the show wherever it is you listen to it. And we'd love to listen to your emails. So email us at holocron@fullofsith.com and we will answer them on the show. I went through them and responded personally to some of the ones we've missed over the last couple months that we have missed over traveling. So we'll start fresh, and next time Holly and I record a show together, we'll start with your email. So holocron@fullofsith.com. So unless you think there's anything else, Holly.
No, I just want to talk about Andor forever, and Jezzy in particular.
Then, so for super producer Mike Pilot and for Holly Fry, I'm Bryan Young, and the Force will be with you always.
Sir, if you'll not be meeting me, I'll close down for a while.